Hello, teacher. Good evening.
Sorry, I was talking and my phone, my microphone was closed. Good evening to everybody. How is
Good
everything?
evening, teacher.
Good evening, teacher.
Yes,
Good.
I was wondering why nobody is answering.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
microphone was off.
Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
and I was wondering why there was too much silence.
Yeah. Rafael, I have already checked your lesson plan. Okay.
Okay, teacher, thank you.
Mhm.
Um, did you comment in my on the forum or?
No, I comment on the forum. Yes, but yeah, it's just a short comment. That it is kind of a general one. I think that what you are doing is just to um, I don't know, assuming that we understand or that I understand. In this case, I don't know what is going to be the procedure that you're going to use to explain some things, right? But it is the only thing. You have to explain a little more some aspects. But that's it.
Okay,
Okay.
okay,
Let me see what
yeah.
I wrote.
Teacher, and what about mine?
I
Have
am
you
in the
checked?
process. I am in the process. I have
Okay.
already checked for, and
Okay.
I'm going to do that. Going to read the rest after the class.
Okay. Perfect, teacher.
So, teacher, but do I have to change something to in order to send it to you, or just I can proceed
No,
to it
send
from
it
my phone?
send it again in the forum, but only with the explanation, the expanded explanation of the procedures. Okay. Let me see. Let me see. Let me see because I want to be sure that I wrote the same thing here. Uh, no, in your case, it's more related to your students because you
Mm,
explain the teacher gives the students this, the teacher does this thing, the teacher does the other thing, but students are like forgotten. And additionally, remember that this is a center and a student center class, so students must be like the protagonist in these procedures. Yeah, so you have to explain a little more what the students or what do you expect your students do, right? If they are going to work all together because you only have 3 students, or if they are going to work individually. If they work individually, what do you want them to do? If they are going to work together, what do you expect they to do? If you're going to work with them, what do you expect they to do as well, right? It's a little
okay.
bit
So
about.
in all the steps, yes.
Sorry.
I mean, in all the steps, do you have to specify
You have to explain a
the?
little bit about what your students are going to do. Yes, I mean because it is very important to know uh, what they are going to do. Remember that this is a student-centered class, and
Okay, teacher. Thank you
if
very
you
much.
read your lesson plan, you are going to notice that the center of the class is you
Okay, yes.
from the
No,
lesson plan.
it is just that well, because it's not written, but like in my mind, I have
Yes, I
what
know.
is going to do. Yes, but
I know
yes,
that you
I
have.
understand.
That's why I told you. I know that you know what they have to do, but as it is
Yeah,
a lesson plan, and I started with this, I don't understand what you're going to do because I am just reading, right?
I know, teacher. Thank
Just
you.
because of that.
Thank you.
Okay. So Sarah, good evening. Tanya, good evening as well. How
Good
is
evening,
everything?
teacher. Good evening, classmates.
Hi, teacher.
How is everything this week?
Ay, a little hard, but it's okay.
Mm. That's normal.
Yeah, as a
Mhm.
teacher life.
Yes, I have to confess that I was so like busy, and then when I arrive home, so tired that I almost forget that I have class today.
Okay.
But then I remembered that today was Thursday, and I said, "Oh my God, I have class." I have forgotten, but it is because of
Okay.
the routine.
Mm-hmm.
Teacher's work is not as simple as many people think.
No, it's so hard.
It's so hard. It's not just giving class and listen to students and raje estudiantes. It is not about
Mhm.
that.
Teacher, how are you
Um,
going in your new job?
It is interesting. I am dealing a little bit with the weather because the weather is a little different from Bogota.
Is hot or cold?
Neiva is hot.
Uh, it's very different.
Yes, Neiva is more or less sometimes sometimes it is very hot.
But
32
in,
sometimes
but
34.
in your job, according with your job,
Okay,
how
about
do
my
you
job.
feel? Yes.
About my job, I feel good because I am working with pre-service teachers as you, uh, and it is a different kind of population because of the region. But I found that they are very very clever and they are very interested in learning English and learning how to become teachers as well. So I'm happy about
Mm,
that. Good
great teacher.
evening, Wilton. Good evening, Noemi. Good evening, Luis Carlos.
Good evening.
Good evening, teacher.
How is everything? Good?
Well, it's been a long day, but I'm
Yes, it
all
is.
right.
Yes. Jaime is missing, right? And it is very
I
strange.
think that he's coming. I think that he's coming because I talked to him like 5 minutes ago.
Yes, because usually he is the first one to enter.
And teacher and Cesar is missing too. I don't know if you received
Yes, I know.
the, mhm, the
I know
information.
what
Yeah.
happened. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Jorge informed about that.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, guys. Okay, so let's start a little bit. I have been checking some of the lesson plans, and I have some general recommendations for you to take into account. I haven't finished with all of them. I'm going to finish right away. We finish this class, and I have a couple of recommendations for you to take into account in regards of how you are going to write or how you are writing your lesson plans. Remember that the lesson plan is a document that you use or that you write for you, firstly, but is also a public document. So that means that any person can read your lesson plan. And if any person reads your lesson plan, it means that it must be understandable and accurate. And with accurate, I have to say that I mean that it must be appropriate to explain what you really want to do. Yes, we were discussing with Rafael that sometimes you imagine your lesson, your class in your head, and it is good. And I do the same. But when you are writing, organizing, or you're writing or organizing the lesson plan in the form, maybe you omit a lot of parts, a lot of details that are important in order to know the procedures and in order to know the techniques and the resources you are going to do and you are going to use. Sorry, the techniques you are going to use and the resources you are going to use. For example, you say, "Teacher will explain, certain topic. I don't know. Most of you are talking about the present simple or past simple. So teacher is going to explain present simple. Okay, that's good. But how? How are you going to explain the present simple? What techniques are you going to use? What resources are you going to use? Are you going to use only the board? Are you going to use some slides? Are you going to use a game? Are you going to use, I don't know, a guide? What are you going to use? And if you are going to use an extra material, you have to show the extra material as well. Yes, attach the extra material. Yep. Is it clear?
Yes, teacher.
Yes,
Yes.
teacher.
It's clear for.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, teacher.
So please, you have to check your lesson plans. I am checking your lesson plans and I am writing that thing. But you have to check your lesson plans and assume and do this with your classmates, please. Okay? I know that you are giving comments and those kind of things, but try to imagine that you are going to give the class of your classmate. Do you really understand what the teacher wants to do? Or you are assuming that you can do, I mean, if he says explain something, you assume that you are going to explain it anyway, right? So it has to do also with the approach and the method you are going to use. Okay, it has to be coherent. And according to this, I have another question that emerged from one of the lesson plans. What is an approach? It is a question for you. What is your definition of approach? Who wants to say? Noemi, go ahead.
An approach is not a method. An approach is something that is uh, very near to something, but till now is not really good supporter. Is an study.
It's an no.
Teacher is like a way of looking at teaching, how we teach and how people learn. And
Mm,
in this approach, for example, um, the approach project-based learning. This kind of approach,
the
for
approach.
example, an example of an approach is project-based learning,
Mm,
and
no,
and
that's
an
not an
approach gives
example of an
like
approach.
no.
Maybe something like try to get an objective on a challenge. I don't know. Maybe.
No,
Yes.
Rafael was very close to the definition.
Teacher,
The example was wrong, but the definition is very close. Yes, Carolina.
teacher, I will say that it's like a way of looking like teacher, but also learning. And it's related to the like theoretical view. I don't know, like you take into account all the,
Yes.
yeah, like the theory or the
Yes,
theories.
it is. Okay, so if we pay attention to what you have said, Rafael and Carolina, you have said that it's what we know, right? So the um the approach is about theory, yes. So if we take this into account, we have to see that an approach responds theoretically to, at least in our case, to three things. First, language. Second, teaching. And third, learning. But from the theory, okay? From the theory. Yep. So I'm going to open a word here and maybe I'm going to write something. Okay. So I'm going to, so we can say that an approach has to do with the theory of three different things, right? Let me use an organizer. Let me use an organizer. Oh, no, this is not an organizer. This one. Use this one that I like. Oh, right here. Yes. So an approach is basically, sorry, I am kind of silly today. An approach is basically theoretical, right? So an approach responds, in the case of teaching, to three things: language responds to teaching, and responds to learning. Okay? So if we pay attention in teaching, we have different ways of analyzing the teaching of language. In language, we have different ways of assuming the language, right? Some teachers assume the language as a structure, right? So when you assume the language as a structure, you see the language in the structural way. I mean, pieces by pieces, going together, right? Grammatically, semantically, phonetically, you can start analyzing language from the structure. So this is the vision. You see that language is a structure. Some other teachers see the language from the function, and it means how language can act in a certain situation, right? So for example, some teachers use the language as a function when they teach how to answer a phone call, or how to write a letter for complaining, right? This is functional. So language is just used for fulfilling something functional in life. But there are other teachers, sorry, here, it is here. Sorry, I don't know what to do. Yes. Other teachers to see not the language as a structure or as a function, but as a way of discourse, right? So it is a more integrated way of seeing the language as a discourse, because as a discourse, it has many implications. The discourses can vary depending of many factors, depending of sociocultural factors, depending on race, depending on gender, depending on age. So discourses vary, yes? And language is a variation of that, yeah? So this vision of languages produce a certain way of teaching, right? So if we talk about teaching, we can say that teaching also has its variations, right? Or its varieties. So teaching could be content-centered, and when it is content-centered, it's very related to learn by memory, right? Could be teacher-centered, and when it is teacher-centered, all focus of the teaching lies on the teacher. So the teacher is more important in the classroom than the student. But there are others that are student-centered, right? And when it is student-centered, it means that the teaching is going to be focused on what the student is going to do, right? So pay attention that so far, we are not talking about methods or methodologies. We are just talking about the theory. And this is about theory, right? And when we talk about learning, we can see that learning also has its implications, right? Let me do this. For example, we can say that learning is could be like on, or we can see that people learn from behavior, right? Behavior. So routines, repetition, exercises, doing the same thing, those things produces learning. Others consider that we learn because of cognitive processes. So there are some strategies in order to use these cognitive processes. And others, can say that what we learn or how we learn is a I forgot the name, social-cultural, has to do with the environment. So we learn from the environment, we learn with others, and we learn accompanied by others, right? So if you pay attention to this, most of the things or most of the ways of seeing these three things can lie on one way of teaching or on one method. For example, if we say that it is structured, the way of seeing the language, it is content-centered, and it is behaviorist, what kind of methods can we relate to this way of thinking? The methods, remember the methods?
Grammar translation. No?
Very good. Grammar translation.
Audiolingual.
Audiolingual, very good.
Yes.
Audiolingual method. Yes?
Yes.
So every single approach lies on this. I mean, it is only a graph. It could be more complex, but it is an example. Now, if we pay attention to this, if we think the language is producing a discourse, not only from the function or the structure, it is student-centered and it is socio-cultural constructed. What is the approach?
Communicative approach.
Communicative approach. Very good. And from the communicative approach, we have some methods. What methods could you relate to the communicative approach? That see the language as discourse, the teaching as a student-centered, and the learning as a socio-cultural constructor. Rafael, you gave the
GBL?
very good.
Yeah.
Task-based learning. Any other?
Project-based learning.
Yes, project-based learning. So then we have the method. Yes?
Yes.
The method is another thing. What is a method?
It's a list of procedures.
Yes.
Yes.
The procedures, right? So for that reason in TBL, how many stages do you have?
6.
6, right? And
Yes.
you know the name of the stages, and you know what is the intention of each one of the stage,
Yes.
right? But we have to be coherent with the approach. Remember, we have to be coherent with the approach. It doesn't mean that you cannot connect the structure with this course because it is connected. Or it doesn't mean that you cannot connect this behaviorist with social culture because anyway we learn because of repetition, right? And memorizing. Sometimes we have to memorize. But the focus, or it doesn't mean that you have to do everything student center because you are not there, but you are there. Okay? So everything has to do with the approach you are selecting. And from the approach, you have to select also the method you are going to use. Okay? So be careful in the concepts. Be careful with the way you are teaching as well. Right? It is reflected in your lesson plan. When you write your lesson plan, I could see that, for example, as I told Rafael, the center is the teacher because you are giving too many instructions in the lesson plan. I mean, from the lesson plan. I am not talking about your class. Yes, but you say the teacher do this, the teacher does this, the teacher does this, right? And where is the student? What is the student doing? If it is supposed that it is a student center and it is socially constructed, the TBL, right? So
Yeah.
you have to pay attention a little bit more to this. Okay? Any questions so far? I have 10 people.
No, teacher, no questions.
No questions? Jaime Fernando, good evening.
Good evening, teacher.
How is everything? Good?
Oh, teacher, sorry for being late. I was confused with the time. I was thinking that it was to a half past time.
8:30.
Let's say sorry. Let's say
Okay, don't worry. Don't worry about that. I don't
thank
know
you.
if you have a, okay, Jaime. I don't know if you have studied something related to second language acquisition. I don't know.
Sorry, teacher. What is the question?
It is for everybody, but I don't know if you have studied something related with second language acquisition.
My linguistic transference and that stuff.
Yes,
I've read a little bit about it, but I don't
but it is
know.
because you have read it.
Yeah, but
Yes, but I mean
what
in
should?
class.
Oh, in class? Well, sometimes you can kind of see what kind of mistakes in the I forgot what you call that. The one that is in between the first your mother tongue and the second language you acquire.
Acquisition.
Okay.
It is the interlingua,
Inter.
Interlingua.
right? So in that one, well, since we are well aware of the cultural context and language or students use, we are kind of able to understand why why are they making the mistakes they're making, and also trying to understand. We can also understand the meanings they're trying to convey, even though sometimes they cannot just tell them in the proper words.
Uh-huh.
Maybe that's kind of like the use I've given to them. Also, in situations where things don't exist in one culture or the other. So, for example, a student that says, "Okay, teacher, how do you say montallantas?" Right. People, for example, if it is we're talking about the United States, they will be told that it doesn't exist that in there, that they just change the complete tire and that's it. I mean, that kind of stuff. Maybe that you're aware of the cultural traits and also of the linguistic ones in both languages. That's the use I've that's what I've done with what the topic you're mentioning. But I don't think that I'm more than that.
Mhm. Okay. So I was thinking a little bit, I was thinking that we have to analyze something related to approaches because we are very technical. We have been very technical, and I think that we have to work on that. Maybe next week I can prepare something in order to talk about a little bit second language acquisition and the approaches that are related to that. Yeah. Let me see if I can find this. Uh, yes. Okay. Right.
Right, teacher.
Okay. Because I think that we have to analyze more things rather than just how to teach. Yeah. So far, you are reading how to teach or how to work with some things, right? This week, it is about how to teach writing or listening. Listening, right?
Listening, teacher, listening.
Listening. Okay. Do you have any problem with the reading?
No, teacher. Me no.
Sure. Not me.
No me, sorry.
Well, I do kind of.
Which one?
Sometimes, well, it's just actually in the institute I am now. They gave me the reading club, and sometimes it's difficult just like to approach the students well in a way that motivates them
Mm-hmm.
or just like finding a task that helps them improve their understanding of text. So sometimes I'm just like lost. I don't know like where to start, what to do, and well, so a little guidance would be amazing.
Okay, although I was not talking about that, but but anyway, yes.
It's just said teaching reading, so
No,
that's why
yeah,
I
no,
thought
no, no.
about that.
No, I was talking about the reading for this week, but okay. Yes.
Oh, okay.
No,
Sorry.
but anyway, but anyway, Luis Carlos, yes, there are some strategies. One of the things that we have to take into account when we teach reading is that Colombian people don't have the culture of reading. Yes, for people in Colombia, most of the people, reading is something that it is not likable,
I don't know.
like a torture. So I, I suggest to try to approach people to read by looking for things that maybe are interesting for them and very short things at the beginning. I don't know what level of your students have. What is the level of
Well,
your?
they're basic. I would say between A1, A2.
Okay, so you have to look for short things, right? Don't look for
Mm-hmm.
long texts. Very short things, little by little, short stories, very short stories, right?
Okay.
I don't know, and I try to mix the reading with listening. Yes, and sometimes I use this once in one school. I try to make a more lived reading. Yes, like acting the reading. It could be also interesting. And I know that most of the times what you want is your students to understand what they are reading because they have to take exams and those kind of things. So in that case, you have to start using strategies. What kind of a strategy can you use? For example, to understand readings, you can use graphic organizers.
Mhm.
Have you ever used graphic organizers?
Well, no, for reading, no. Actually,
Sure.
I'm not aware how to use them for reading.
Okay. There is an article. Let me find it.
What I've tried with them is mostly a little bit like skimming or checking some information like pictures or the
Yes.
title, and for example, trying to, after doing so, giving them the strategies where they can like try to take a word out of the context, or give them tools like going in certain dictionaries. I just sent two links. Those are, for example, one of the resources I've used. I recommend a lot the second one I sent, because in that one there are some stories or short conversation that not only have the audio, the conversation that is recorded by real people, but also they have a script. And if you want, it also has a quiz and a vocab tab, a vocabulary tab.
Hmm.
So you can support your student by and foster the reading by showing them the script when they don't understand, or well, you can use all those tools that the pages give. But
Yes.
I've never tried using a graphic organizer.
Yes, but try to use a graphic organizer. Maybe trying to have the appropriate organizer can foster that reading comprehension, because in the
Teacher,
graphic organizer they can put what they need. Yes, Carolina?
yes, actually, I was going to say that when I work with my students on reading activities, I use like simple graphic organizers sometimes to identify like the main situations or events that happen in the story. And actually that it's a way also to work like the sequence of something of the story in this case.
Good.
So that's how I use them.
Yes, you can use in that order of ideas, you can use also timelines to organize
Yeah.
the sequence or the events. The graphic organizers also help you to understand who, what, how, when of the story. So basically, those are the questions that we ask when we are reading, and when we are like checking the comprehension, right? So you can use those techniques as well. Try, try once, and let's see what happens.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, Carolina, for your recommendation. That's very good.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, right. This week the reading, no, not a reading skill, but the reading is about listening. Yeah, listening for me is one of the most complicated skills to teach, because to teach listening is almost impossible, right? For me, there are
Why
some.
did you say that, teacher?
Sorry,
I wanted to know what did you say that that is impossible? I don't
no,
understand you.
almost, no, impossible, not totally
Okay,
impossible.
okay.
Because, for
What?
example, you know, Wilton, you are a musician. How do you teach your students, your music students, to listen? Because they receive a training in the sound, right? I
Yeah.
suppose, I don't know. Yes?
Yes, teacher.
Okay, and they train the listening. But for us, it is very complicated to train the listening because there is not a static thing like a note, right? To
Hmm.
identify. There are many factors that affect the listening. For example, pronunciation, intonation, rhythm, accent. Those aspects are involved in speaking and affects also the listening. Yeah. So how do you teach
Okay.
someone to understand what a British person say? A British person says, for example.
That's a very
Yeah.
difficult accent.
Yes.
Yes. I understand your point.
Yeah. You
Well,
see.
actually, exposing them to the, I don't know how to say, to the
Yes.
accent, to the lingo.
Example. Yes. It is one
Mhm.
technique. But are you really teaching?
Well, you have to make clear cut the difference. For example, when they say telly, I mean TV. When they say flat, I mean apartment. When they
Yeah, but
say
no, but this is about vocabulary. And we are not
okay,
talking about vocabulary. We are talking about listening.
sure.
You know what I
Well,
mean? So you
yes,
can expose
I
them.
know Yole.
Yes, you can expose them to many exercises, and you can use some techniques in order to start eliciting many things. But what I mean is that it is very complicated to teach how to listen because it is a skill that it is hard to teach.
Well, you
However,
go
you can
through
give some clues, right?
like sound patterns, like certain sounds that tend to change, or in a certain way, or something like that, maybe.
Yeah, it is good, and it is a very good exercise. But anyway, it is going to take long, right?
Hmm.
So most of the cases, our students are when they are not very close to English, when, since they since they are little, our students most of the times have many difficulties with this skill that it is listening. So the idea is to try to use strategies in order to improve or let them improve their listening skills, right? The listening comprehension, basically that. Yes. My point was, it is very difficult, almost impossible to teach. However, you can do many things in order to help them to recognize and to improve themselves this this skill. Okay. With the reading, I suppose that most of you have already done it. You are going to find some strategies. Yes, some strategies. In case that you need the whole book, because it is a whole book, but I divided into the pieces just for practical reasons. In case that you need the whole book, I can share the whole book with you. Okay? If you
You mean how
don't,
to teach English?
no, this is not that. This is the other one by Harman. Let me see. Don't remember the name. The practice
The
of
oh,
English language teaching.
oh, the practice English. Let me see. I think I have it here.
Yeah,
Is
I
it?
think that you have it.
Can I share it in here through the
Yes,
chat?
you have it. You are
Let me
faster
see.
than
I
me
think
sharing that.
okay. I'm going to share it right now.
Okay, right. Okay, guys. So I don't know if you have any comment or anything to say. This Carlos is sharing. This Carlos has already shared the book. Do you have any comment or anything to say or questions?
Not in this moment.
Okay, so I'm going to
No,
finish checking the lesson plans. I'm going to give you the feedback. I'm going to wait for the recording, right? The recording is for next week. But anyway, if you recorded this week, upload it. Yes, right?
Yes,
okay,
teacher.
teacher.
Okay,
Okay,
guys.
teacher, thank you.
So thank you for attending. Remember that
Thank
next class we are going to talk a little bit about second language acquisition processes and continue talking about the approaches in language teaching. Yeah.
Okay, teacher.
Okay.
okay,
Thank you
teacher.
very
Thank you.
much. Have a
Thank
good
you so
night.
much.
Have
You,
a good night,
thank
teacher.
Yes.
you.
Thank you.
Night,
Thank you, teacher. Good night.
everyone.
Luis
Bye.
Carlos,
Yes.
go ahead.
Well, it's just that I was checking the the campus. I don't know how to say the model,
Yes.
and well, I didn't see that if you graded or checked the video, the last recording.
Ah, yes. I haven't uploaded the grades, but I'm
Okay,
going to do it in a moment. Yeah.
okay.
I have already watched it, but I haven't
Uh-huh.
uploaded.
You have me in suspense.
Yes. Okay. Sorry for that.
Okay, that's all. Don't
Okay.
worry.
Bye bye.
I understand. Bye bye.